All right, I think we'll get started. Welcome everyone to our summer 2022 Tufts Leadership for Social Change and Climate Resilience live Q&A. I'm Olivia Letourneau. I'm the Marketing Associate for Tufts University's pre-college programs, and along with Calvin, Gabriella, and Sally, I will be hosting tonight's webinar. We are thrilled that you're joining us to learn more about our academically challenging and uniquely rewarding Leadership for Social Change and Climate Resilience Institute programs. Not only do we have a lot of great information for you tonight, but we're also looking forward to let you drive the second half of the session, which will be a live Q&A. So throughout the talks tonight, feel free to put any of your questions into the Q&A box and we will get to all of them at the end. Yeah, so we'll just get on to some introductions. I'm going to kick it over to Sally.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Sally Kim, and I am one of the program administrators that works with Tufts pre-college programs. So if you've called us at any point or sent us an email, there is a chance that you might have talked to me, but it's really great to be here tonight, and I hope I can answer some of your questions. I'll turn it over to Calvin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Calvin Zhao. I am the program director for the Leadership for Social Change program, and I can't wait to tell you all about the program later. I'll pass it over to Gabriella.
Gabriella Garcia. I'm the program director and the instructor of the Climate Resilience Institute, and I look forward to chatting more and seeing what questions you have.
Awesome, thank you all. And without further ado, I'll bring you through tonight's agenda. I will go through both of our programs, the requirements overview, and some of the nitty-gritty details of what's to come this summer. It will lead into a little bit of the application process with getting into our pre-college programs. And then, like I said, we'll end with our live Q&A. So let's get started right with our Climate Resilience Institute.
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. So the Climate Resilience Institute last summer was its first summer, and it was off to a really strong start. We had about 40 students participated, and we took a really interdisciplinary approach to the subject of climate resilience. So really grounded in social justice, and then several case studies to think about the many facets and disciplines through which we can approach climate resilience, right? So typically the schedule would start out with some activities and a lecture that I would give to introduce different topics. So we have modules on, the first one is on environmental justice, and then we have one on climate resilient food systems, climate resilience action from the bottom up, so like grassroots movements, and the top down, so policy, right? So we would address all of these different topics, and we would have guest lecturers from the Tufts community, so professors of different areas of expertise, and then also a lot of local environmental resilience, climate resilience organizations as well. So really getting to talk to people on the ground that are doing really rich work in this area. And so the goal really was to expose, students to this diversity of ways in which we can think about climate resilience and get excited about all the different ways in which we can take action, whether through research, through policy, through community organizing, right? And students worked on a capstone project throughout the 2-week course. So in really small groups of 2 and 3, students teamed up to put together an interactive website known as a story map on a climate resilience topic or case study of their choice. So really diving deep into one area, and that was a really enriching experience as well. So
great, and I'll share a little bit about the Leadership for Social Change program. And to begin, I wanted to introduce 4 questions that we kind of ask ourselves during the program, and this framework was actually brought to us by one of the instructors of the program, Professor Angelique Fahlberg. The 4 questions are, what do I want? What is my context? What do I have? And what will I do? And to me, these 4 questions really sum up what students will get out of the LSC program. Really, for a good part of the program, we're working with students and thinking about and helping students learn about different social issues and social issues that are particularly important to the students themselves, to really answer the question of, what do I want? What do I want to see in society? What do I want to see changed in society? And what does that look like? And that for us in any social change, social justice work is the first step. A lot of students will start very broad. They'll say, I'm interested in education equities. And part of this program is really helping students narrow that down from education equities as a bigger topic to a more specific, localized context that they can actually begin taking action on. So that might be thinking about for education equities, whether you're interested specifically in racial inequities, with special education, with gender inequities, and even deeper than that, whether you're interested in specific policies and phenomenon like the school to prison pipeline or the tracking system. And then lastly, figuring out how those phenomenon exist within your own communities, at your own schools, and thinking about what you can do. So that really answers the question, what do I want? The second question is, what is my context? That's where we're really helping students learn how to research about different issues and how to understand the policies that are governing the inequities that they see and the problems that they see in their community. And really for students to understand what's going on around them, what have other people done already, and what they can possibly contribute. The third question is, what do I have? For this question, we really help students think about their positionality in society, think about places where they hold a lot of power and privilege and places where they might not, and how they can use those spaces to their advantage to making change. One example I love to give students is, believe it or not, high school students, regardless of which high school you attend, you probably have some amount of power in your high school as a constituent of the high school. And you probably have a lot of power among your friends and your peers. And if you were to get your friends and peers as high school students together to advocate for something within your high school, you might realize the power you inherently have, even as a high school student. And the last question the program really tries to answer is, what will I do? Here we talk about different tactics and different strategies for making change. We talk about the benefits of making change within an institution, within institutional platforms. So maybe you want to go through a very formal legislative policymaking process to make change, or you want to go outside of an institution and have a protest or have a walkout to really put pressure on making change happen. These are kind of 4 fundamental questions of the LSC program. Next slide. So just to summarize, in this program, you will develop and apply leadership skills and learn about civic engagement. You'll be hearing from different Tufts faculty each day. You'll be listening and learning from different civic leaders and people who are doing this work on the ground. You'll get some Tufts pre-matriculation credit. You'll be really applying all of what you're learning into a project that addresses an issue within your own community. And you also get to, experience our Tisch College of Civic Life, which is a pretty unique college that really centers all about community engagement, civic engagement, and civic life. And this summer, we'll be having 2 versions of the LSC program. One will be on campus from July 10th to July 22nd, and the other one will be virtual, July 31st to August 12th. Just a quick run through of what the LSC schedule will look like. The first week, we center a lot on social issues. So you'll see here that this is scheduled from last year, the virtual version. Students had a different lecture each day that focused on different topics. On one day, you might be learning about neighborhood segregation. Later, you might be learning about food justice. And part of the program is for us to really help students make the link between all of these different inequities and injustices and see that they're all part of the same system rather than disparate issues standing on their own. And then on our second week, which is the next slide, you'll see that we really start focusing on change. So once you know about the issue, once you've learned about the issues, you've understood the root cause a little bit more, what can you do and how can you use those 4 questions that we talked about earlier to help make change within your community, however you define that, whether that's your school, that's your neighborhood, that's a group that you're a part of. We really have a very open definition of community, and our goal is to help empower students to learn to make change within those communities.
Awesome. And before I hand it over to Sally to talk about our application process, I just want to remind everyone that you can throw any questions that you have about either of our programs in the QA box or even in the chat if you are having issues with the QA. So without further ado, here's Sally to talk about some of our application processes.
Thanks, Olivia. And thank you to Calvin and Gabriella as well for their incredible explanations of some of our incredible pre-college programs. So you've listened to Calvin and Gabriella speak. You're really excited to potentially apply to one of these programs for the summer. So let me tell you a little bit more about how you can do just that. So first things first, you'll head over to our application landing page to register for an account. You can find that link either here on your screen right now, or it is also a link on all of our program websites that say apply now. Once you've registered for an account, you can log into the system and start your application. To complete your application, you'll put in some basic information, family information, and then you'll be able to select your program of choice. To supplement your application, you'll be asked to provide contact information for a recommender, for a letter of recommendation, and a school official who can upload an official copy of your transcript. Now, some programs may require additional application information. I believe for the Leadership for Social Change, Calvin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and Gabriella as well, there may be a brief personal statement where you just indicate your interest as to why you are excited for the program and why you're applying. But definitely make sure to complete all aspects of the application before submission. As a part of your application, additionally, your parents will also need to complete a parent permission form, and your recommender and your school official will also be prompted to upload your letter of recommendation and your transcript respectively. Once we've received all of these materials, we will return your admissions decision within 10 business days. And upon admission, you'll be asked to submit your deposit and some enrollment forms, followed by full program payment. And just like that, you will be ready to study with us this summer at Tufts. So yeah, hopefully that wasn't too overwhelming of an application process, but if you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to chat with it in the upcoming Q&A session. So I will hand it over to Olivia.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sally. And like she said, let's get into some Q&A. So any questions that you have about our application process or either of the programs tonight, we'll be happy to answer. And I do have someone already kicking it off. What do students do outside of class? So any social activities that we can speak to?
Yeah, I can jump in a little bit here. So right now we are currently in the final stages of nailing down all of our residential life details with our residential life partner named Summer Discovery. Currently, right now, we have plans for social activities after students are out of the classroom from their respective programs throughout the course of the week, but also with the ability to take potential weekend excursions as well, with supervision and with residential assistant staff. But once that information is finalized, we will definitely be posting it and sharing it through various communications, as well as having that information available on our program website.
Awesome. And a question came in about LSC. What does the residential program schedule look like? Does this version include hands-on work within the community?
Yes, so that's a great question. There are some differences between the residential program and the virtual program. The residential program will be an experience where students will be not only in the classroom taking classes, getting lectures, but also spending a lot of time with each other in small cohorts, getting to know each other, working on group projects, really going through that experience as a cohort. We're imagining a size of about 40 or so this summer, 40, 45 maybe. And as part of that experience, we do plan to, if it's safe and when it's safe, to visit some of our community partners. So Leadership for Social Change is a program run by the Tisch College of Civic Life at Tufts. And Tisch College is an entire college built specifically on developing community partnerships, especially within Somerville and Medford, our host communities at Tufts. And through that connection, we're able to, and we have a lot of partners that we work with through other programs that we would love to introduce the high school students to, and really have students learn not only theoretically what change could look like, but see actual people on the ground working at local nonprofits, working on local issues, and seeing and learning from that experience. If possible, we try to incorporate some amount of volunteer work as well, but that's really something that's dependent on a mutually beneficial collaboration with the community organization.
And could a student be in residence for 1 week and a commuter the other week?
I'll let Calvin answer that question, but I do believe that the Leadership for Social Change is actually a residential or virtual only program. So there would be no commuter option for this program. And I'll let Calvin explain a little bit more as to why.
Yes, that is correct. So LSC, as I mentioned, will have the residential option earlier in July, July 10th, July 22nd, the virtual option, July 31st to August 12th. And for the residential version, we do not have a commuter option. That is because we do think a big part of this experience is that college-like atmosphere and that social experience of being together with other high school students around your same age and moving through the program and all the different elements of the program as one big cohort. And sometimes it could be harder for a commuter student who is leaving in between classes or after classes and coming in each day to feel as part of that cohesive unit. So that is why LSC is a residential only program for the in-person option this summer. Before those who are unable to do the residential option, the virtual option is something else that is available and something that we did the past 2 years and we feel strongly about.
And where do residential students live, and will they have roommates?
So that is a great question. So for all of our residential programs this summer, we will be hosting students on campus at Tufts University in one of our dorm rooms that are available for undergraduate students that regularly during the academic year would stay there. So students will get a really exciting, I think, introduction into collegiate life, at least in terms of, the residential aspect. And yes, in this situation, you also would have roommates. So once you're actually admitted into the program, upon paying your deposit, you're also asked to complete a series of enrollment forms in order to help, confirm your spot for the program, and just so that we have all of the important information that we need to know about you. One of those forms includes a residential information survey, I should say. And in that survey, you are basically letting us know like everything that there is to really know about you, and sort of, like what your preferences are at night, how clean you are, how early or late you like to go to sleep, if you are someone that is fine with a lot of noise or would prefer a quieter room, things of that nature. And from there, working with our residential life partner, Summer Discovery, we would then pair students off into our dormitories for the summer.
Fantastic. We have someone that's interested in both of our programs. Are there any crossover between the two?
Not explicitly, but they do have a lot of kind of similarities. So perhaps what would be most helpful is to talk about how they're kind of distinct from each other. I think they're grouped today in this webinar because both of our programs are really invested in taking a social and action-based approach to these contemporary issues. For the Climate Resilience Institute, the focus is really socio-environmental. So there's a big emphasis right on the climate. So our modules include climate refugees. We talk about food justice, right, and how to grow food more sustainably, and several kind of nuances of those debates, for instance, GMOs and things like that. And the community partners that we work with are specifically involved in climate resilience in the greater Boston area. So last summer we had guest speakers from the Green Dragons, which is it's a youth organization that combines martial arts with gardening, and really in really interesting ways, finding the synergies there for kind of holistic approaches to both of those things, working with inner city youth. We also had guest speakers from Green Roots, which is a organization in Chelsea that does a lot of community organization within the largely immigrant community there, kind of combating some of the issues that have plagued Chelsea, and they're really making some positive change in the area. So that's kind of, I think, where Calvin, maybe you can speak on this more, but that seems to be where our programs depart a little bit, is more in like the specific subject matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say LSC is kind of more of a broad strokes program as opposed to having a specific disciplinary or topic focus, like the Climate Resilience Institute. With LSC, I would say the focus itself is social justice, and social justice takes place in so many different fields, disciplines, forms. And for us, what we try to do is touch on, explore all of them, have students really figure out and understand what causes they're particularly passionate about. And we'll look at also the interconnectedness of all of these different social justice issues and see how common threads of racial inequity, gender inequity are prevalent through all of these different areas.
Thank you both. And you guys might have touched on this a little bit, but could you maybe say some of the like more explicit skills that they'll walk away from at the end of this program, or maybe talk to them about some of the final projects?
Absolutely. So in this one, I think that a lot of the skills, well, one of them is kind of on collaboration. So working with your peers to really develop a tangible output, right? So these story maps that you work on, which I think also are the capstone for the other project as well, but they're tangible and they're published online, right? So people can actually find them. You can put them on your resumes. You can point to this work that you did. And throughout the program, over those 2 weeks, we have librarians come in to talk about how to find peer-reviewed, right, credible sources, how to cite them properly, how to find images and acknowledge copyright accurately. So by the end of it, students have put together really amazing story maps that I think they're really proud of, and that they can show off to highlight some of the work that they're capable of. Because you do get a Tufts credit, right? We try to make sure that the class is of university rigor. And so we take those things seriously, how you're finding sources, how you're citing them, but also we expect students to be able to digest them and synthesize these diverse sources into a cohesive and easily accessible narrative to people that didn't take this course, right? So to a more broad audience. So I think that kind of science communication is one of the really valuable skills that you come away with. And I think one of the other things is the perspective that you gain. So when I was a high school student, I would have benefited tremendously from taking this. I didn't really have a sense of all the different kind of career paths and disciplines that university life opens your eyes to, right? So you kind of have the typical college or high school, curriculum. Then you get to university and suddenly you're taking philosophy courses, and just all the options that are available to you are so vast. So I think it's even more valuable if you can get that exposure earlier on, just to have a sense of, okay, this is something that I think is piquing my interest and that I want to explore further. And so, yeah, I think that broad perspective is another kind of skill or benefit that you gain from the program. So those are the two I'll touch on and hand it over to Calvin.
Yeah, for LSC, not to steal your answer, Gabriella, but I would copy and paste everything that Gabriella said. I think is also relevant to LSC because of the way it's, the two programs are similarly built. To add to that, I would say if there was one thing that popped into mind as a core skill that I think all students walk away with, it would be an enhanced sense of critical thinking. Really, throughout the entire program, we're teaching students to be thoughtful and critical about how they're, as Gabriella mentioned, synthesizing and evaluating information, and how they're thinking about what they're seeing around them. So not necessarily critical thinking only in the academic context when you're writing a paper, but can you be a critical thinker when you're at your school and you see this happening, or when you're in your community and you see something that you're like, hey, that's kind of weird, like what's happening here? these are the type of skills that we really hope students will take away from the program. These translatable skills that are also skills outside of the academic space. The other one I would add is just a sense of confidence. I think, for a lot of high school students, the idea of changing society or making changes in society might be a daunting prospect. And part of our program is to really deconstruct that intimidation factor and help high school students really feel empowered and know that they can and are, critical members of society that can actually do a lot to change it, even though they might be 14, 15, 16, 17, etc.
This question might be for Sally, but if either of you know as well, please jump in. You mentioned information about outside or weekend activities will be released when it's decided, but are there examples of some of the past social activities that pre-college programs has put on and what is done in the free time or weekends?
Yeah, I think that previous iterations of our residential program, so the last time that our team has really been able to have in-person programming was summer 2019. I believe that summer students did things like, movie nights, game nights, during the weekdays. I believe that some of the weekend excursions were really like excursions really into the city of Boston. So, if you haven't been to the city, it would be a really great experience and a really great way for you to explore the area and to get to know it a little bit better. I do believe that they did some longer day trips even out of the city during the weekend, but I do believe that we may be offering something a little bit different this summer. So again, once that information is finalized, we'll be sure to share it out with all of our interested students and families.
And on top of that, do students have access to any Tufts facilities, for example, the gym, and like what does downtime look like in between?
So downtime is really going to depend on, what program a student participates in. A lot of these programs, you're in different parts of not only, Tufts campuses, but you may also be in different parts of the city, depending on which program you're a part of. Some of our programs, for example, go to our SMFA campus in the city of Boston or our Boston Health Science campuses in downtown Boston. So I think downtime is really individual to the program that students participate in. I would expect that downtime really looks a lot like students relaxing, attending a lot of the social events, eating dinner. Dinner is also important. Food is important. And maybe potentially getting any sort of extra assignments that maybe our programs assigned to students, working on completing those tasks. As to your other question about having access to Tufts facilities, I do believe that students will have access, on campus as residential students. However, at this time, Tufts University has actually closed all of its gym facilities for right now, much to the chagrin of the whole Tufts student and staff body. But it's really for the safety of our students, staff, and faculty at this time. However, as a lot of those protocols change, so will the access that our students have. So if the gym is open during the summer, our students actually do get Tufts ID cards made for them during their stay. I definitely do believe that students would have access to, the gyms, much like students would during the summer.
Speak just to the specific Climate Resilience Institute. We do have assignments for students, but we're really intentional about making sure that there's time during class, during kind of the course itself, to work on it. So we don't expect students to do homework as long as they kind of use that time wisely. So yeah.
Awesome. And we did have a question before about the similarities between our programs and college life. Maybe you guys can talk more to the workload and like what level of work they'll be doing versus maybe the work they do now.
Yeah, for LSC, the way it's structured is that students will hear from a different faculty member at Tufts each day. And the lecture that the faculty member is giving is going to be a college level lecture, where they're not diluting their content or anything like that for the purpose of the program. So it will be similar to what I would say an intro college like sociology class might talk about and whatnot. And as part of that faculty lecture, there will be homework assignments in the LSC program that really help scaffold students to the LSC final project, which is where students will examine an issue within their own community and create basically a brief that talks about the stakeholders involved, that really researches policies that govern that issue within their community, makes recommendations, and then presents it to a larger audience. So that is for LSC what the program is building towards. And academically, I will say it will feel really depending on high school preparation, but it might feel slightly a step up for some students. But what we really prioritize is to make sure that students feel supported throughout this process. So we have a very big team of peer leaders and teaching assistants that are either Tufts undergrad or Tufts graduate students who are really reaching out to students, making sure students are keeping up, are understanding what's happening in the lectures, and are able to move through the program in a way that feels good to everyone. So that's how I would talk about the college experience from an academic perspective. And then from the residential perspective, this is where the two LSE programs will be a little bit different. So on the residential program, obviously you'll be living in dorms, you'll be going to dining halls together, you'll be hanging out on the weekends together, you'll be doing group projects together. It's kind of gonna feel like a college experience, I would say, just for the mere fact of having everyone together on campus for 2 weeks. For the virtual program, it will feel less like a college experience for sure. We do really prioritize and value community building in that program as well, and students are constantly in cohorts, moving through the program in smaller cohorts, getting to know each other even through a virtual Zoom space. But it wouldn't have the same residential feeling as the residential program.
Yeah, I'll say, the Climate Resilience Institute is just an in-person, so we do have a residential and a commuter. As with the Leadership for Social Change program, the guest speakers are primarily university level professors, and certainly they give their lecture with the understanding that the students that participate in this program are interested and motivated and eager to, and certainly capable of kind of keeping up, right? So it may not be what students have been prepared for, again, depending on different high school preparations, but it certainly shouldn't be, not manageable. And we also have a group of teaching assistants. And this course is structured such that at the end of each day, the last block is a small group block. So while the rest of the course will be the whole cohort, maybe 40, 45 students, something like that. For the last block of the day, you're in a smaller cohort of about 10 to 15 students, where you can kind of digest what we talked about during the day, different activities and lectures, with a smaller group to kind of accommodate different styles of learning and engagement. And it's in those groups too that the students will be working on their capstone projects as well. So it's I'd say at the level of a university course, as it should be, but it's kind of like an introductory course. And the format is somewhat different, right? Like at college, you don't go from 9 to 5 a day. So it has the benefit of being highly structured and that you're with the same group of students throughout, which I think will make the transition easier and a nice kind of in between for you as you prepare.
Great. And for our students that are flying in from anywhere outside of Massachusetts, do we provide any shuttle service from the airport or any types of transportation?
Yeah, great question. In regards to that, we are currently connecting with Summer Discovery to figure out what that is going to look like. Our plan is currently, though, to offer pickup and drop off services with Summer Discovery to and from the airports at the start and at the end of every programs. But as soon as all of these details are in the process of being in the last stages of confirmation. So like I said, again, once we do have some more of that information, more details will be coming specifically to our students who live sort of outside of this Massachusetts or outside of the immediate area of Tufts University about how they can make sure that all of their information is noted so that we are able to pick you up and drop you off.
Great. Thanks, Sally. It looks like we've made it through most of the questions in our queue. So at this time, I'll ask for any final call of questions about LSC, CRI, any other application questions or general pre-college questions that we can answer for you. And while I wait for that, I'll actually move us to this next screen here. If anything does come up that you think of after this webinar, you can contact us anytime by email, by phone in the 9 to 5 period during the week. Our number is there, and everything is just about on our website that you need to find. So all of our individual programs and all the information there. You can follow us on all of our social media. We're pretty active, and if you can always slide into our messages there if you have questions there. But it's been great answering all your questions tonight, and we hope to see all of you this summer. Thank you to all of our panelists who have answered our questions, and yeah, we're looking forward to summer 2022.